When we're trying to use our body to swing better, there's really two parts. There's the upper body and the lower body. The upper body wants us to accelerate our arm, and the lower body is what really drives that off the ground first. We have the feet, we have how we bend our knees, and we also have our hips. One of the big parts with the hips is that you might be thinking of clearing the front hip. If you haven't heard coaches talking about that, it just means that you're making sure that this lead leg is not blocking the rotation that you're trying to do with your hips. So if I don't do anything with this lead leg and I pivot this back foot, I'm gonna feel like I'm stopping into this leg, and it's gonna prevent me from swinging as fast as I want. One way to do that is to maybe have your feet open or sideways just a little bit, or have your front foot pointing toward your target. So that's going to give you space to allow you to turn your hips. But there are other cues that you can use to make sure you're in the right ballpark, or that you're doing the right thing. One cue that you can use is you don't want to feel any tension on the lead side hip. You don't want to feel your IT band stretching, and that results from you pushing your hips forward. Or if you watch any golfing or possibly baseball videos, they might call that sliding the hips. So you don't want to be sliding your hips forward. This isn't getting the energy transfer that you want on the shot. If I slide my hip past my foot, I feel a lot of tension in my hip. And that might be body weight, but it's not transferring into rotation. And if I can't get any rotation out of that body weight transfer, then I'm not getting the speed that I want out of it. I might get slightly more power than if I did nothing or if I fell back, but it's not going to put you in the right position, and you're probably going to notice that your legs are getting very tight, and maybe you even start to develop a pain out of the IT band right here. So you want to make sure that as you're setting up for this shot, you don't just push this hip forward. You want this hip to feel like it stays behind the foot. It can still go on top of the foot, but it's not going to go past the foot. So if I'm hitting in this direction, I can be ending on top of it, but it's not going pushing past it. That doesn't matter if it's a forehand or a backhand. As long as I'm staying with my hip staying behind the foot or on top of it and not past it, then I'm in a good position. You just don't want to feel the tension of sliding your hip past that foot. Another great way to think about it is how the Weck method describes it. You don't want the hip to be even with your knee. So as I'm rotating, you don't want this hip to stay in line with the knee. I'm not rotating here because then I'm getting stuck, and it's also pushed my hips forward right here. And I feel that IT band stretching or pulling tension, and I don't want that. So you want the hips to feel like it's inside of the knee or behind the knee. So I can still push forward, and maybe the knee pushes past the foot, but I never kept the hip in line with the knee. As I'm driving into the shot, the hip stays behind the knee. If you're looking at it from the back, you can see that my hip is not going in line with the knee or staying with the knee. The hip is going and it's staying behind the knee. So as I rotate, I'm able to stay behind it, and that is allowing me to keep my weight on the ball, so I can rotate so that I can transfer my weight and rotate to get the most power out of the shot. So a cue that you know that you're doing it wrong is if you feel the stretch in the IT band. That meant that you just slid your hips forward and you didn't get the rotation you wanted. If you don't feel that and you're able to keep the hip behind the knee as you rotate through this, that means you're able to transfer your weight forward and you're able to rotate through that position to get the most power out of your shot.